Thank you guys so much for being here with me tonight. I know I've seen some of you, but for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Coach Natalie, and tonight I am going to be talking to you about how to make confident choices when it comes to holiday dinners or holiday meals. First thing I usually like to do, and I actually forgot to do this my last call, and I realized that after, and I know a couple of you are eating some dinner, so no worries if you can't do this right now, but I like to just ground ourselves a little bit before we get started so that we're always in the present moment and intentional with what we're doing at this time. So I'll just get you to take a moment, and if it's safe to do so, just close your eyes, plant your feet on the floor, and we'll just take a couple deep grounding breaths. And it'll be in through our nose for a count of three, filling our bellies and not our chests, and holding at the top for a count of three, and breathing out through our mouths. When you're ready, you can go ahead and breathe in through your nose. And one more, in through your nose for a count of three. And when you're ready, just bringing some awareness back to your eyes, and you can open them when it feels right to you. I just like to do that, especially right now. I know if Kirsten's feeling tired, most of us are probably feeling tired. This time of year is exhausting for all the reasons. The fact we are missing a lot of daylight, and the fact that we're usually all kind of running around like crazy. It's just a lot and it can be exhausting. So please know I feel that and I'm here with you. I'm feeling it too. Taking these moments to be present and taking a few deep breaths can be really helpful for not only your energy levels, but just kind of coming back down to earth when we're kind of living up here for so long. Okay, so let's get started. So we are going to just kind of address where confidence is going to come from when we are at holiday dinners. Some of the biggest things that I hear is people don't feel confident being like, no, thank you, I don't want to have that, or asking if something contains something that maybe they're avoiding. Our top avoidance are usually gluten and dairy. But other things can affect people too. Sometimes, if vegetables are raw instead of cooked or steamed, it can be a little bit harder on our digestive systems. And maybe we don't want to say, oh, is it okay if we steam those? Or do you know if they were cooked in oil? Or do you know if they were cooked in butter or whatever it is? Sometimes we're trying to avoiding that because we don't want to be a bother. But your health and your wellness is not a bother. What is a bother is if you weren't well for the rest of the evening and then you missed out on all that time with your friends and family. So, really trying to remember that the needs that you have are not troublesome, they're not bothersome, they're just needs that you have, no different than if you were to ask for a glass of water or show up prepared with a water bottle because maybe they don't have water. Things like that, right? You can have more control over your choices than I think we give ourselves credit for. So just making sure that we're capitalizing and building on or cultivating, I should say, that confidence that does exist within you, but you just need to kind of act on it a little bit. So, oops, just get that. Hi, Kelsey. Welcome to the call. Okay, so confidence begins with a clear purpose. What that means is that why do you care about why you need to be confident in the decision you're making about your food? Well, why does it matter to you? Is it because it's going to upset your tummy? Is it because it doesn't feel good? Is it because it's out of alignment with what your goals are? What is the reason that you are trying to cultivate this confidence around a decision you're needing to make at this particular time in your life? Um, why does that food choice matter to you? So this is questions that only you can answer. I can't answer this for you. However, I can give you some prompts. So thinking about, okay, is this going to make me feel well? later on tonight? Is this in line with my goals? Is this something that I know I have a sensitivity to and it's going to affect me later on? Is this something that might be what's known as, or something you may have heard me talk about, a red light food? What a red light food is a food that kind of triggers a response in us, whether it's an emotional response or a physiological response where it causes us to crave it more. Is our blood sugar balanced? Am I going to be able to say no to maybe a red light food or a food that is not going to serve me in the ways that I'm hoping it will, right? So reflecting on what the purpose behind the food in front of you is going to serve and why that food choice matters to you in the moment. If that choice aligns with where you are right now, whether it's enjoyment, whether it's having a part of a cultural experience of where you are at in your life in that moment, whether it is going to give you energy or it's just going to taste good, coming back to the reasons that you are choosing that food in that moment is important. Sometimes it's nostalgia, sometimes it's because it is really good and good for you and you know it's going to make you feel good. Sometimes it's in between and you just know you need to eat something. Coming back to why you're choosing your food and what those choices mean for you and how they're aligning with you is important in cultivating confidence, because you've now decided what that means and you're taking charge and ownership over that choice, which means you are back in the driver's seat and in control of your food. Okay. Food, make your food work for you, but doesn't mean that it has to be an unenjoyable experience. It just means that you're taking the reins, you're taking control back over what you're choosing. So, an example of cultivating some confidence and things that you can tell yourself when you're making these food choices is, I want to enjoy my holiday dinners and still feel good in my body the next day. And then working backwards for what will help you feel that way. You can still enjoy a sugar cookie or a piece of pecan pie or whatever it might be that might be at your particular dinner, while also recognizing that having some turkey and steamed vegetables and maybe some mashed potatoes is also really going to serve you from each macros food group to satiate you, stabilize your blood sugar, and mean that later on or with your dinner when you're choosing to have the sugar cookies or whatever it might be, I'm just throwing out typical holiday desserts that we usually see, that you won't feel the desire or the need to overeat, because you've now taken care of your needs and enjoyment, because most of that stuff does taste really good still. And then you're allowing yourself the permission to still enjoy the other things that you might want to have, but not coming at it a place where you're not stabilized in your blood sugar and you might be going a little bit banana sandwich, having a little bit more than you might usually. So, that is a way to kind of start cultivating that confidence a little bit. We talked about this a little bit in last week's call, but I did want to bring it back up again, is the 80-20 approach. We've heard this probably a lot in life. Like I literally feel like I remember hearing about this when I was younger. And I don't know that I had the ability to comprehend what it actually meant. But when we focus on 80% nutrient dense foods, that's a majority of our time in life. And 20% indulgences and things that maybe aren't as nourishing or serving us as much as we want them to, that's not going to impact us as much if we are focusing on that 80% most of the time. And the 80% doesn't have to look boring or bland. We can create so many delicious and tasty dishes that serve us. And we can also make sure that when we go to places and family members' homes or friends' homes, wherever we might be celebrating, if you're celebrating, but this goes literally all year round, we're just making sure to choose things that are in their as whole form as possible, while also being something that is going to come back from our macros categories. And I've talked about this before too, and I know that, and I know macros can sound like an intimidating thing, but it doesn't have to be. We're not measuring out like 40 grams of protein, nothing like that. We're just literally looking for something from a protein category, like a children's sectioned out plate. Okay, so a protein, fish, chicken or poultry, beef, whatever it might look like there. Moving on to carbohydrates, then we might have potatoes or rice or fruit, something there. Then a healthy fat, whether that looks like nuts, avocado, your dressings, olive oil dressings, avocado dressings, whatever that might be. And then even bacon. Bacon classifies as a healthy fat. Okay. Well, it's like a medium fat, maybe not the healthiest, but like a medium fat. Okay. Classifies as a fat. We want to have a fat because, again, again, even if it's bacon, it still helps to satiate your blood sugar or satiate you and keep your blood sugar levels stabilized. And we also want to focus on vegetables because fiber helps with our digestion, helps keep us fuller longer, and all those micronutrients that we need for our body to fight things like inflammation and for antioxidants are really important as well. And when we combine all those things, it's helps us create and cultivate willpower. It also helps to stabilize that blood sugar, which is really important, and helps keep us in line with that 80-20. So we've accomplished our 80 by focusing on our little sectioned out plate. And now we can focus on where we want that 20% to fit in and if we want it to fit in, because we do have control over our food. We have control over our bodies, and we make that choice of how we want to choose those less nourishing meals and then enjoy them. Because if we're making that choice, we need to enjoy it and let ourselves enjoy it. We're not going to beat ourselves up. We're not going to be running 42 miles the next day to earn it. You don't need to earn your food. You are a human and you are allowed to enjoy it. And please, please do enjoy it. Um, Coming back to mindfulness and presence and intention, just like how today, when we come back to be a part of this meeting together and intention and take what we need from it. Some of it you might be like, oh yeah, I already have heard this a few times. Some of it you might be like, oh, that actually hits home for me. Some of it you might be like, what was that? Because we all have families and life going on in the background when we're trying to show up to these things. So it is just a fact of life. But coming and being part of the experience with your food, the experience with the people that you are around actually does so much more for your nervous system, which also then does things for your digestive system, your cortisol levels, and it helps again stabilize your blood sugar. I wonder how many times you guys will hear me say that. If we ever played like a drinking game, which I don't encourage obviously, but if you heard me talk about stabilizing blood sugar and you had to drink every time I said it, y'all would be on the floor. It would be a real bad situation. But stabilizing our blood sugar is so incredibly important because it cultivates that willpower, and it really does help to balance out your hormones. And it allows you to be more present when you're not thinking about, can I have that? I'm really craving that. I really want this, right? Sorry, just let Katie in here. So that is something that definitely is important, is being mindful. That way you can also pay attention to, am I still hungry? Do I really want that? What is this worth to me in this moment? And should I have more of my 80% foods versus the 20% right now? Kind of really helps you connect with your body, cultivating that brain and body connection again, where you're understanding your hunger cues and whether or not you are in fact still hungry, right? Because we don't want to starve. It's important that you eat. It's important that you nourish in whatever capacity that's going to look like for you. So slowing down, savoring your food, enjoying the experience of the food that you have in front of you and the people that you have around you, and regulating your nervous system with that connection, and again, balancing out those hormones. So ways that you can be really present with your food is slowing down between bites. If you have a fork or spoon, chopsticks are really great if you want to really challenge yourself. I cannot use them no matter how hard I try. You put your fork down between each bite and really chew your food. You can even count it, but I don't want people to get obsessive with like counting your bites. But to start, if you feel like, man, I feel like I'm inhaling this, or I feel that it's not taking me very long to get through my meals, just count your bites. You can count to 15 to 35, and it should make what's called a bolus in your mouth. And when it makes it's kind of gross, but this is what you want it to make, is it's gonna feel really well chewed. And when you do that, you actually trigger these digestive enzymes in your mouth that help the digestive process when you swallow your food. So not only are you slowing down the process of eating and enjoying and having that experience with your food, you're actually also triggering a physiological response in your body to properly start assimilating the nutrients of what you've started chewing. So it's scientific while also being more enjoyable if you don't think about how gross it is inside your mouth. Um, Something else you can do and focus on is having little sips of water or whatever beverage you're choosing, but water is ideal in this instance, room temperature if you can, in between your bites as well. We don't want to have large amounts of fluids in between our bites or during our meals because this actually tends to dilute our stomach acid. When we dilute our stomach acid, that actually hinders the absorption of the nutrients that we have in our body and it doesn't properly break down our foods. Our stomach acid is really, really important. So we want to make sure that, yes, if we have a little a beverage with our meal, that we're just having little sips in between and not having large gulps or drinking like a glass of water in between, because that will dilute your stomach acid and it's really important for the breakdown process. But again, having little sips can be really helpful in slowing down the meal process as well and helping you to remain mindful of what you're doing. When you have mindfulness in your meals, it really does help to bring you back to, am I really full now or am I in control? And I know that I could do with a little bit more. So presence and mindfulness, huge. Pay attention to the people that you know are gonna be food pushers in your life, okay? So this is like, right, like they're like they've got the overcoat and they've got like the pie on this side and they got the sugar cookies on this side. They're like, yeah, let's get some. Okay, we're not we know who Aunt Martha is or like Uncle Tom, they're coming at you, okay? And I am guilty of this. I want to see my people enjoy their food. It makes me so happy. I've slaved away, blah blah blah. However, it is not the responsibility of the people that I love or care for to make me feel better about the fact that I cooked for them. I chose to do that because I love you, but it doesn't mean that you love me any less if you don't want to have it. And it doesn't mean that you love your people any less if you don't want to have that because it's not in alignment with your goals or it's not going to make you feel well. Okay. And it is not a reflection on them and it is not a reflection on you if you say no to the overcoat. Okay. So we're just not going to do it. Some things that you can do to feel confident when people will make comments about your choices when they happen to be the food pushers, um, is recognizing that it is not a reflection on you or them, saying thank you because you are grateful. I know you are that they thought of you when making this meal. Okay. I'd be grateful that you came and I'd be grateful if you ate it, but I'd also recognize that, yes, okay, maybe that's not for you. Not everybody's going to see it this way, but if you can just remember to come from a place of gratitude, they will feel that and they might come around. They might not, especially if they're of an older generation. It is a lot harder. It is. It just is. But I do find if we just try to remember to remain in gratitude and true to who you are in your heart, they will feel that and they will know that. And that's the best you can do at the end of the day. And just praying that, next Christmas they're not reflecting on like, well, I remember when Kirsten was here and she refused to eat my mashed potatoes. Like, oh, she ruined Christmas. Okay. Most won't do that, but there are some out there that might. And you didn't ruin Christmas. Christmas is not about the mashed potatoes. But anyways, coming from a place of gratitude, thank you so much, Aunt Martha. Your potatoes look amazing, but right now I'm just not having those, or I don't feel like it. What I have on my plate is enough. I'm saving room for your amazing pecan pie that you already told me that you made me. I can't wait to have that instead. So I'm just actually going to stay away from that right now, or simply no, thank you. It's not for me right at this moment. You don't even have to offer anything further. No is enough, just like we would teach our children if somebody was searching for some sort of consent from them for something. If no is in their body to say that or their mind, no is enough. That's it, right? We're going to say the same thing because this is something that affects our bodies. It affects our minds. It affects our long-term goals. And if it's not in alignment with that moment, in that moment, and when you've asked yourself, what is this worth to me? This is not worth it. And you know that, then we are going to honor ourselves. We're not going to betray ourselves. We're not going to betray our goals. We're not going to betray what our bodies are asking of us for anybody else because it's our lives, it's our bodies, and they don't have to deal with the repercussions of things that might not make us feel as good. And on the flip side, if it feels good, please enjoy it and please thank Aunt Martha because she did slave away and it felt really good and enjoy that experience with her, okay? Um, But practice setting those boundaries without guilt. Bring the conversation around to something else that isn't surrounding food is another really great tactic to use. And it sounds so silly that we need to use tactics, but it is just kind of a fact of what we experience when we go to certain dinners and we are with people that come from a really good place. They just want to share their love with you, right? But switching that conversation sometimes can be one of the easiest things to do ever. Just being like, oh my gosh, look at the foot of snow, or did you hear about XYZ? I don't even know what is going on in the world at this moment. I'm just here right now, but whatever it might be, flip it over. Like, I don't, P. Diddy's pretty controversial. Like, go over that direction. We'll talk about him. And then that usually that'll ixnay it right quick, right? Um, Always when people are looking for you to dish up, okay? So I know in most holiday dinners, there's like a buffet style kind of setup. Sometimes it might be on the table, depends how big it is, but a lot of people tend to now gravitate towards the island and you'll grab your plate and you can go to a kitchen island and grab things. It's a lot easier if you dish up your own plate than letting somebody else dish up your plate. So just even if you are starving, saying something very simple like, oh, I'm not that hungry, so I'd actually like to just make sure I don't waste what's on my plate. So I'm going to dish up my own plate can be an excellent place to start when you are building your plate. And then I want you to really remember and focus in on those macros that we had talked about before, a protein, a carb, a healthy fat, if it's available to you, and vegetables. Most people have vegetables of some capacity, usually root vegetables, so things like parsnips, carrots. I've seen a lot of, I know there's usually salads or broccoli salads seem to be a big thing that I've noticed in Canadian Christmases. I haven't always had Canadian Christmases, but that is something I noticed a lot from here. So focusing as much as you can on those macros contents and putting those on your plate first. Making that plate look like something you want to eat, okay? Not just something like, oh, I have to pick from a protein, a carb, blah, blah, blah. No, something you want to eat. Like, I get to have turkey, and that is a protein. Oh, I get to have potatoes, and that is a carbohydrate. Oh, that's awesome. I'm nailing it. 2 out of 4 right now. Ooh, I'm gonna have some of that walnut salad. That's two healthy fat and some greens, right? So really focusing on how you can build a plate that looks amazing and that you're gonna really enjoy. So and then two, that also includes an indulgence if you decide that that's what you want. Okay. Remembering you are in control, right? We don't let our bodies control us and we don't let our blood sugar control us because I have taught you that you're going to balance it from the moment you wake up. Okay. Right. I'm counting on all of you. When you do focus on building a visually appealing plate, it does tend to be a lot more enjoyable and you have less, oops, sorry, my notebook goes there. You have less of people bothering you about what you should be having or, oh, you didn't take my famous casserole, blah, blah, blah. No, you've set the standard, you've built your plate, it looks good to you, and that's all that matters, okay? Um, we are going to focus on eliminating shame around our indulgences. So I touched on it already a little bit, but honestly, this time of year or any time of year, we are going to be graced with foods that are going to challenge us and our thought process around them. Now, a lot of the time we've been taught things are bad or good or super bad or super good. Sometimes both go hand in hand. It is super good and super not great for us, right? But when we attach a meaning to it that it's bad or that it's good, it's no longer about the way that the food can serve us, and it's more about how we feel about it. And we don't really need to feel anything about food, right? Food is just here to make us healthy or maybe not as healthy as we can be. But it's right, it's to fuel us. It's to support our bodies. It's to support our hormones and the things that help us go and move and do and be in a day. We don't really have feelings about food. We do because we've been taught to, but we don't really because it's just something that's necessary to serve us in one way or another. Sometimes it does come from an emotional place. Sometimes it does come from a connective place when we are having these experiences with our loved ones. Sometimes it does come from a holy Hannah, I am absolutely starved because I did not serve myself this morning and I need a blood sugar fix right quick. It's going to look a few different ways, but we don't need to attach feelings to food. We just need to figure out in what way we need it to serve us in that moment. Do we need it to serve us for energy and fuel, maybe some muscle gains, whatever it might be? Most likely, that's typically what we need is energy and blood sugar stabilization, which is going to carry on to regulate our hormones. And again and again and again, you see where we go with that, right? And sometimes we do need it to serve us in the moment of, I'm enjoying this time with my family. And we usually do have the pecan pie. And I remember this when I was two, and the first time I ever had it, and I thought my mom was going to fall off her chair because it was a size, a serving size that was my as big as my face, right? Like these memories are just as important to the actual experience of eating and act of eating the food can be. So it is important to recognize that. Taking away the sayings of like, I shouldn't have this, or I should have more salad, or I shouldn't think about another cookie, or I should have another serving of turkey. Getting away from the shoulds and shouldn'ts and just being like, what do I feel like? What do I want? What what is this going to do for me right now? How am I going to feel tomorrow? No should or shouldn't, just being curious with yourself and not putting pressure on yourself. More pressure that you put on yourself, the more likelihood you are going to have like four plus cookies or whatever else and not feel as good as if you just decided to do that. Because it's not sorry, I'm just reading. I'm guilty of using should and shouldn't often. Then I think I'm not eating it 5 times a day every day. That's right. And so you flipped the script, Ashley. I love that. Because you're not eating it 5 times a day every day. And should and shouldn't are hard. And that applies to so much more than just our food choices. Like how many times do you think I should do my laundry instead of working out? Or I should work out instead of doing my laundry? I'm probably that other side because I really avoid my housework. But I feel like, yeah, we should ourselves to death, right? Like honestly, all we need to do is exist and feel purposeful. And a lot of times that comes back to connecting to ourselves and with our families and our loved ones, right? That is our actual literal reason for existing on this earth is vitamin C connection. Okay, I'm such a nerd, I know, but that is like the truth of it all. I say vitamin C connection, vitamin L, which is love, and that comes from both of those things being in combination with each other. Without connection, what is the point of anything? Without purpose, what is the point of anything, right? So, but we also do need to eat, which means we connect with our food and yada yada. Anyways, don't should on yourself, okay? It's not fun. But however, be aware, be curious, come back to being in touch with yourself and what you want from your experience. Embrace that food freedom quality that we try to teach you guys here in Muscles and Mindset, where we release the guilt and shame around food and we just simply treat it as what it is nourishment because we love ourselves, we honor ourselves, we respect ourselves. And sometimes that's going to look like foods that aren't as nutrient dense, and sometimes that's going to look like foods that are absolutely nailing every nutrient that it exists. Okay. Hydration and moderation. You want in this time of year to pay attention to what your hydration choices look like. Oftentimes, there is a lot of wine, a lot of bubbly, ciders, things that are all very festive, right? In England, where I used to live, they had malt wines, and they are fabulous and so warm and so festive. And it just every time when I think about smelling it, it just takes me back. I don't drink, I haven't drank for a lot of years, but even in that moment, I think I'd feel tempted just because of the memories that it gives me and that warmth that you feel and the way that you reflect, right? So much of this time of year is nostalgia and a feeling and a connection to a feeling that we've created and cultivated with loved ones. So again, this comes back to moderation and how you want to feel and remembering that you are in the driver's seat and you get to choose. So if you are choosing to partake in alcoholic beverages, which most people do, it's the time of year, it's a season, it's life, and it might just be something you enjoy. figuring out what that balance looks like for you and how you plan on moderating it and how you want to feel. Can you focus on having a glass of water in between your choices? Are you going to maybe make sure that, okay, I'm going to eat first before I do that so that my body is going to have a little more sustenance in it before I've decided to do this so that you do have a lot more willpower and you can cultivate a little bit more of that discipline when you've had something to eat and your blood sugar is stabilized, right? And then so when you have a drink, it doesn't mean like, oh, all of a sudden you're starving and then now it doesn't feel as easy to maybe have some of those better choices that you could, right? Be mindful. Just be mindful because you do deserve that. I have zero judgment. I don't care if people want to drink, not drink, whatever else. All I care about is what's best for you and what feels good for you. Okay. So I want to really stress that. I can't stress that enough, actually. But if you do drink, just paying attention to how it feels, how you want to feel, and knowing that if you have a max capacity, what that level looks like for you, and if you want to hit it, because you do get that choice to decide that for yourself, right? If you know like 3 glasses of wine, that's suddenly all of a sudden a place for you where you don't feel as in control of yourself, as in control of your decisions. Maybe you do find that you're hungrier and then things kind of go crazy. And then the next day you're beating yourself up. Ask yourself if you want to feel that way tomorrow. And if you do feel that way tomorrow, can you let yourself do it without the guilt and shame that accompanies it? And just say, hey, you know what? I made that choice for me. Today, I know I need some extra electrolytes. I need some extra water, and I'm going to focus on nourishing myself because that was yesterday and today is today, and I can't go back. And I had a really phenomenal time with karaoke, and I'm going to move on. Okay. That's what it's going to look like. We are not holding on to yesterday's and things that maybe make us feel bad because we probably felt really dang good in the moment. And so we're going to hold on to the memories of those moments and move forward with the choices that are going to serve us in the moment of today. Okay. So really focusing again on that moderation and that mindfulness and how you want to feel. And we're letting go of anything that's going to make us feel less than that. Which also leads me into my next topic, which is I kind of just covered already, which was self-compassion, giving grace, right? We are not perfect beings. It's impossible, but our flaws are what make us human, and they also help us in connection. Um, we can't be perfect. We don't want to be perfect. That would be really, really boring, right? That's why robots don't run the world yet, although it's looking really close and scary sometimes, all these driving cars and whatnot. However, we just want to focus on the process, the progress, the journey, and that includes these experiences. Focus on the memories that we're cultivating, and the food is just such a small piece of that. While it can create that nostalgia, while it can create those moments that we remember, certain smells and things like that, that's not the entirety of our evening. It's actually about like 6%. The rest of the time is usually spent playing board games or wacky games or chatting until your throat hurts the next day, or being really excited about maybe a gift you purchased for somebody, or watching that experience that they get to have watching you open something, right? Really coming back to what the moment means and taking away from the fact that food is a focal point there. It doesn't have to be. It can be in the moment that you're enjoying it, but it doesn't have to be for the rest of the night. Really coming back to that presence and connection of the moments that you're having with the people that you care about, or maybe the people you don't, you can't wait to get home and like put on some slippers and watch Netflix, whatever it looks like for you, okay? I'm not in a place to judge. We had some wild Christmases when I was growing up. So if you love Christmas, awesome. If you don't, awesome. If you're neutral, great too. So progress over perfection. We're not going to be guilty. We are letting go of guilt. We're letting go of shoulds or shouldn'ts, and we're just going to celebrate the memories and the moments that are going to make us happy. And even if you feel like they're not going to make you happy or make you happy, choose the happy that you can find in those moments. I know how hard that can be, but even if it's something super small, like you know that you get to leave, focus on that. Just be gentle with yourselves, have some compassion. This time of year can be challenging, but it can also be really beautiful if you let it. But just as you get to choose your food choices, you get to choose to let that happiness exist as well, right? Okay. Things that you can have as like a confidence checklist with yourselves. These are some tips that I wanted to share with you that are going to be really helpful that you can take with you to anywhere you go throughout this holiday season, but also just in life. My first one always is check in with yourself and your hunger levels before you eat. If you know that you are going to Aunt Sharon's at 3 o'clock, but you guys aren't eating till 6 o'clock and you haven't had lunch, find something to eat before you go, okay? Because chances are they're going to have some stuff where you can graze and whatever else, and then you might not even be that hungry by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, or you'll be starved if they don't. And then you're going to overeat regardless, either way, because you'll either feel like you owe it to somebody, which hopefully by the end of this call, you don't feel that way anymore, or because it looks so good and you want it all still, so you force yourself to eat it. I want you to create that mindfulness where you're not going to put yourself into that position. You're checking in with your bodies. You're having and starting your day with a beautiful, balanced breakfast that's going to stabilize your blood sugar. So lunchtime's going to come around and you're going to be like, oh, I am unstoppable. There is nothing that's going to tempt me here today. And I am going to eat so well because I love the way that this food makes me feel and it's great. Or if you don't do that and you get to that, then there is a chance where you're not going to feel that way. And it's going to be a lot harder to say no to certain choices, or it's going to be a lot harder to not overeat because you let yourself get so hungry. So I like to keep things like emergency meals or mini meals, shakes, protein bars, things like that that will serve me before I go to a meal. I have actually eaten a full, or I shouldn't say full, maybe like a half a meal before I've gone to dinners before, just to satiate my body and blood sugar levels, because I know that I'll be in a place, just like if you were to go grocery shopping, when your blood sugar is low, that I'm going to make some very poor decisions. So it's really, really important to make sure that we are doing what we can to stabilize that blood sugar and keep ourselves in a place of willpower that we've created, and that we aren't going to let ourselves kind of go a little bit crazy when we don't have the capacity to actually recognize our choices are coming from a place of want versus a place of like, whoa, my body really needs some energy right now. It really needs some food. So check in with yourself. If you feel like you can't make it till 6 o'clock when you're arriving somewhere, have a protein shake, have a mini meal, something that's going to support you and support your food choices later on. Um, Focus on building your plate with intention. Just focus on those four macros categories: a protein, a carb, a fat, and some vegetables. And you can't go wrong, even if they have butter on them, okay? Even if they maybe weren't steamed, however it might look, still focus on those categories. The rest, because this is our lives, we live in an 80-20 moderation, will balance itself out eventually. This is a small time period in your life. It is not the whole picture. And we are going to have holiday dinners. We are going to have birthday dinners. We are going to have events that are going to come up all throughout our life. And being able to confidently look at those choices and know that you can choose something from those macros categories gives you that control back, while also allotting you that 20% where you can choose to have that indulgence as well. And now you are in complete control of what you have, as well as giving that control to your blood sugar to help you cultivate that control from a physiological place as well as a mental place. Okay. Come back to mindfulness. Be mindful and intentional with your food. Practice the art of chewing slowly. Practice the art of setting your fork down and having a sip in between. Really being mindful about the food that you're enjoying and experiencing, and let yourself enjoy it. Okay. It's important. Enjoying your food choices is important. Respond thoughtfully and kindly and from a place of gratitude from people that are going to push food at you. They just love you and you hopefully love them too. But remember that if you are kind and grateful, most of the time they will come from a place of that too. If you sense their disappointment, change the subject. Their disappointment is not within you. Okay. That is not yours to carry. That is not yours to hang on to. You're just honoring yourself and your body while being grateful and recognizing the work that they've put into whatever they may have done. And that's all it has to be. It is not a reflection on you, and you do not have to carry the weight of however they might feel about your choices and decisions to honor your body in that moment. Okay. Um, and gratitude for the experience as a whole. You can be grateful for the time that you get with the people as much as you want to be or will let yourself be. Again, situation dependent for everybody. But be grateful. in whatever capacity you can be. And like I said, it might be grateful that you get to go and be there for 5 minutes and then leave. Whatever that looks like for you, I'm not here to judge. Just remember to be grateful because when you are grateful, that is a lot easier on you and you're not stressed. Okay. When we are stressed, cortisol raises, blood sugar destabilizes, and you see where I go with that, right? So it's just as much physiological as it is about a mental and mindset shift as well. Um, so some things I want you to think about before we kind of get into any questions you may have today is confidence with food is about alignment with yourself, your goals, and what it means to you in that moment and not restriction, okay? It doesn't mean that you're confident enough to say no to the pie. It means what is it worth to me in that moment? Okay. You can really, really focus and bring it back to what is it worth to me? What do I want to feel like? How does this affect me long term? Does it affect me long term? And what do I want to feel like tomorrow or the next day or the next day? How many dinners do I have? What does my life look like? Do I know that I have control to bring a dish that's going to serve my goals, etc., etc.? Building that confidence is going to come from a place of acting on confidence. And you can do it. I know you can. If I can, somebody who literally couldn't even ask a waiter if like it was okay if I had gluten-free bread, even though they offered it on the menu. I know that you can do it. Okay. So I would like to focus in just before we get ready to open this up on how to set healthy boundaries and how you can create a response that you're comfortable with if it comes up from a food pusher, and you don't want to have the food. You've decided that you don't want to have whatever it is that they're pushing or asking you to have. Let's talk about some ways that you can say no in a healthy way that's a boundary for you that feels good and not yucky. Okay, so I am going to challenge you guys to come up with some responses, but I am going to prompt you with one that I came up with leading up. And I know we talked about it already a little bit, but because we're going to touch on it and I want you guys to come up with some, I'm just going to do another one for you right here. So let's say it is something like, what did I say? Pecan pie. What else is something that people like to have? I feel like pecan pies come up way too much in this. I don't even know if people have it that much. What do we have usually? Let's go sugar cookies, I guess, because I feel like cookies come up a lot. Okay. So let's say Aunt Sharon is like, you just have to have these sugar cookies. They are to die for. The kids and I spent 14 hours hand decorating these with all the piping and sprinkles, and they are delicious. You are going to love it. You have to have it, and you don't want one. Okay. Thank you so much. They look incredible, but I'm just not in the mood for one right now. Maybe later. Have you heard about P. Diddy? Okay. You can flip the script. You can flip this, flip the conversation around, and then that helps as well. But thank you. That's all you have to say is not for me right now. Okay. And it's okay. They might come back around and say, oh, you just have to, though. Please, you have to. Look at little Chloe's face. She's going to be so disappointed. Sweet Chloe's face. Oh, Chloe, your cookies look amazing, and I can't wait to try one day. I'm just not ready in the for it right now, but thank you so much. They look incredible, and I have no doubts you worked hard on them. Okay. Redirect the conversation if you need to. Chloe, how was dance class? How was whatever, right? Because some people will do that. They'll bring the kids in and it makes you feel bad. Don't let them. Love on them, be grateful for them. And that really does help bring the conversation back around to somewhere that's healthier for you and them and takes the pressure off, okay? When you emphasize those boundaries, you're honoring your own needs. You are not rejecting theirs. You are honoring your own needs, okay? They are just as important as what everybody else feels about their cookies, okay? So, I would like you to think about the most common, I guess, food pushing thing that comes your way when you are at gatherings, and most common thing that comes up for you that you struggle to say no with. And I want you guys to practice right now before we head off of this call what you would say to Aunt Sharon or Uncle Tom or whoever it might be, your friend Kathy, and say what you would plan on saying to them to direct the conversation elsewhere, how to politely have a boundary and say, like, no, thank you, that's not for me, what you might say. So I want you guys to take a moment or two. You can write it down. If you would like to share it in the chat, I would be so grateful to see what you have come up with and we can talk about it. Or if you'd like some advice, let's open it up. Let's talk about it. So I'll give you guys a moment or two to do that. Struggle with platters of food that are available to snack on. Okay, that's usually like kind of the appetizer style, hey? Yeah, no, that's totally makes sense. And I find that that can lead like to the kind of grazing mentality, right? So with those platters of food, are you experiencing them more like at work, gatherings? Where are you seeing them most?
I find at work and at like our family gatherings, like oftentimes people will bring multiple appies and things out. And so I often just get a small bowl and like or a plate and fill it up, which as like a trying to fill it up with veggies and things. But then I find that like as I'm talking or like I'll just grab something or like fill my plate up again and I'm like, "Oh, wait a second. What was supposed to be like one round is more?"
Yeah. Oh,
This is
for
so good.
sure. Oh my gosh, no. Usually they are so good. I find like with those ones, it's like the spinach dips or like a charcuterie, and it's all the so yummy things that just fill my soul with joy. But yeah, so in those instances, what I like to do is when I talked a little bit about those like emergency mini meals or emergency bars. Protein and fiber are your best friends this time of year. So if you know that, okay, at work, like somebody is dropping off a platter, keep a little something off to the side that you can keep that's like shelf stable or you can whip up really quick for yourself. Have that first. Then you can allow yourself to go over there and graze a little bit. A, because it tastes good, and B, because you've chosen that in that moment and you want to. But now you've had an ability to stabilize your blood sugar first and you can make the choice after to go in there so it won't feel as kind of unconscious and also bring yourself back to the consciousness of it because I know usually what happens I see it I was sitting like in that staff kitchen wherever it might be and we're chatting, right? And so we actually aren't even mindful about the food that we are taking in because we're chatting and we're visiting and we're enjoying those moments. But even if you do, you fill that up and you take it back to your desk wherever you need to be and eat it first and then come back to chat. And if you decide you still want to have a little bit more, that's totally fine. And then you can chat and eat at that time. But setting aside that time first to go and eat it first might work if the situation allows for it. It's not always that easy, and I recognize that for sure. But the number one tip I have for that is just making sure that you have something before. And that usually makes it a little bit easier and less appealing to have multiple and multiple. Does that help, Kirsten?
Yes, very much so. Thanks.
Of course, no worries. Yes, of course, Ashley. So my question is if you are in a situation where you feel like you need to be confident with a boundary around the food that you have been offered. So let's say they're just like, oh, can you have more? You should have more mashed potatoes, or you need to have more, whatever it might be. And you're just like, I really don't want that, or it's not in alignment with the goals. I don't feel like I want to have that more. Or oftentimes people experience this with alcohol too, right? They're like, let me top you up, right? And you're just like, no, that's not, I don't want that right at this moment. How can you feel confident and what phrase could you keep in the back of your mind in order to set that boundary with somebody from a compassionate and kind place?
I think being like, hey, I appreciate the offer. Yes, the cookies look delightful, but like I already had one and that's enough for me right now.
I love that. And if they push back, how will you approach that? So if they're like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, the cookies are so good. So please have one. Like shove it in your face. How are you going to approach that if they don't take your first response as at face value?
So sometimes I'll use that I don't eat a lot of refined sugar regularly, and it actually makes me feel sick. So I feel like when you tell them it's like a physical problem, they're much more accepting of it
Yep.
instead of initially being like, you know what, this is a boundary for me. It doesn't, serve my goals at this point.
Yep.
But when I tell them, hey, like I have migraines and if I eat too much sugar, I actually feel really unwell, then I find they back off. But like it really shouldn't get to that point.
I agree. And I agree wholeheartedly. It shouldn't get to that point, but you are so right. When you mentioned that it causes like a physical ailment for you, most of the times they'll
Mm-hmm.
back off.
Yeah, it's almost much more like accepted. It's kind of like when people say, like you said with the drinking alcohol, for instance, that's
Yep.
a boundary for me. I don't have to explain why I'm not drinking. It doesn't fit with my fitness goals. Or like maybe I had, an addiction in the past. But like, again, that's not for me to share with you. Like, I don't have to share that with you.
Exactly, right? Like no is just it's a complete sentence, right? Like no,
Totally.
thank
Absolutely,
you.
it is.
Yeah. Oh, I agree so much. I love that. I love that. I feel like your confidence level, I need to draw from.
Thank you. It's taken a long time, but it's thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. No, I really I think there's a lot of value in what you said. I hope everybody heard your response. I'm glad I'm still recording because yeah, that's awesome. I agree. And yeah, no thank you is a complete sentence. And yeah, your responses, even especially for the pushback, is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
No problem.
Just reading Kelsey's response here. Usually alcohol, no thanks. I've already had one or not drinking at all and driving tonight. That's a good one. For food, probably not eating seconds would be the push. No thanks. I'm saving room for a snack later. I love that too. And that's so good because also most of the time they have snacks out, so then they're gonna think like, okay, great, they're gonna have some of my snacks that I've got put out. Um, Pressure to take leftovers. No thanks, it was great, but we don't have room in the fridge. Perfect. And that's it. That's done. And then if you need to, you bring it back around to a different topic. That's perfect. Love it, you guys. Good job. Okay, does anybody have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about before I let you all move on with the rest of your evening and 2024? Because this is my last group call of 2024, which is crazy. Okay, if nobody has any, or if no one has anything, oh my word, can you tell it's been a long day? Anything else to say this evening? I will let you all carry on. I hope it is not as freezing cold with you as it is with me, and that you all have an incredible Christmas and whatever that way that looks for you. Please enjoy it. Enjoy the foods that you get to have and the time with your loved ones, and whoever that may be or what that looks like for you, and that 2025 is incredible to you. I hope that you will all take some time to be really intentional with what you want your next year to look like. I know I've been trying to think about that, and it gets a little overwhelming sometimes, but really take some time, create some intention, what you want your 2025 to feel like, what you want it to look like for you, how you want to embody and be the person that next year is asking for. Okay. Thank you all for your time and for your love and showing up tonight. I appreciate each one of you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. You're welcome, Michelle. See you guys.